What's going on? My name is Scott Steward, Big Stu, Professor Stewart. It really depends on how you know me. Welcome to the Genius Lab. I am the founder and CEO. And in today's session, we're going to focus on the 12 basic vocabulary words for stock market investors. Okay, so let's do a little screen share here. I'm going to present this whole screen to you. So here we go. Uh, so this is a class that I teach, for adults, for youth. What's so interesting is like adults and youth. Yes, I know how to and make the content super easy to understand. This is for people who are new to stocks and investing, or maybe you know a little bit, but you want to brush up. I'll just make some simple stuff super easy to understand for you. So let me just go over a little bit about what's going to happen today. Again, my name is Scott Stewart, the founder of Genius Lab. I've had students win the stock market game 12 times, uh, and I've won more than 18 awards for teaching business, technology, and entrepreneurship. Not only have I taught in Chicago Public Schools, middle school, and high school level, I've also taught at the university level, Chicago State, DePaul University, and Lewis University here, Romeoville, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. So that's part of our agenda for today. We've done the introduction. Next time I'll hopefully be able to hear from you. We're going to go over the basic vocabulary today. And then in other sections, we'll look at charts and we'll look at how to actually make a trade. So here are the basic six of the basic vocabulary words, and how I'm going to give them to you. It's more like conversation style. I mean, yes, it's a lecture, but I don't want it to feel like a lecture. I want it to feel like I'm having a conversation with you. And because it's video, you are able to go back and rewind at any time if you need to hear something again. So, if you don't mind, let's get into it. You can take notes, but you don't have to. You can just keep listening to this as many times as you need to. So, a portfolio is a book of your investments. Just like if you were in, school and you had a three-ring binder, I define a portfolio, short for investment portfolio, as like your three-ring binder of your investments. Another term for investments are securities. So what are some securities? What are some investments? Well, of course, you can invest in stocks, you can invest in businesses, you can invest in government by the issuance of bonds. You can have individual retirement accounts, also known as IRAs. You can have CDs, not the musical ones, of course, but like they're called certificates of deposits. It's actually you allowing the bank to borrow your money at a given interest rate. It's called a CD, certificate of deposit. So there are a number of different instruments. It could be a real estate holding, right? Real estate is a great way to secure your money. And that's what we mean by a security or an investment, a safe place to not only put your money to protect it, but to protect and grow it. And that's what makes it a security, right? So that's your investment portfolio. When they say, what's in your portfolio? Assume they're meaning, who's ever asking is meaning investment portfolio. And it could be a mixture. Oh, I didn't even say mutual funds, right? And we'll talk about shortly. So what's in your investment portfolio? I have some stocks, I have some bonds, and I have some, maybe precious metals. Or I have some precious metals, some real estate, and some IRAs, or some CDs. Or so that's just like, where are you protecting your money, and which secure instruments or securities are you using to protect and grow your money? What's in your portfolio? All right. Now, a stock, and actually, I have an official stock right here. This is a stock. It's an actual piece of paper. It's a certificate of ownership. One stock represents one share of ownership in a company. A stock is a stake in the game, right? And the reason it's a certificate is because this is like legal tender. It's paper. And if I really wanted to go into it and describe, paper being proof of ownership in relationship to value for something, that's how you get the trade. We had paper money, paper coins, and then we have these stocks and bonds and certificates, and these things actually go into your portfolio. This is your proof of ownership, an actual stock. you know Luckily today you can buy fractions of stocks. You don't have to buy the whole stock in order to be a fractional owner of the company. An owner is an owner, right? So you can buy fractional shares of ownership, and shares and stocks are used interchangeably, except in some small nuanced situations where they're not. But stock share is pretty much the same thing in most cases. Okay. Stocks, public companies and private companies can have stocks. Where you buy them is the difference, and we'll talk about that in just a few moments. So let's talk about risk. Your willingness to lose it all, or quite conversely, your willingness to gain it all, right? Are you the type of person that will go parasailing, sky jumping, bungee jumping, zip lining, right? So snorkeling in the deep blue sea, right? Are you that type of person, right? Jet skiing and all kind of jumping off of free falling off cliffs? Or are you the type of person that wears elbow pads, knee pads, and a helmet to take the trash out because you're afraid you might bump into, a bush, or you might run across a spider web, right? What's your risk tolerance level? How risky are you? Generally, however risky you are in the real world, in your personal life, will translate to your risk tolerance in financial sense, right? Understand, if you bet a little, you gamble a little, you take a little risk, then you'll see little returns. But also you'll lose a little because there is a chance that you might lose. You can lose money in the stock market if you're unwilling to be patient and use some of these principles that we'll talk about in some other sessions. But your risk is your willingness to win and or lose. Little risk, little reward. Big risk, big reward. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. The less the risk, the less the reward. Keep that in mind. What's your risk tolerance level? All right, so we've gotten through the first three, 25% of the vocabulary. I hope you like this cadence. Let's keep going. So when you see the word diversify, diversification, anytime you see a word that starts with div, you can assume that means to divide, to break up, to split. Diversification has the word diversify in there. Diversity is a huge word right now. And diversity or diversification is to split up and to mix up, right? Let's split this thing up and let's break it apart and let's bring some different pieces in here. Let's spread it across. And that's what we're talking about in diversifying your portfolio or diversifying your stock investments. When we're talking about stocks, since we're talking about the basics of stocks, when we're talking about diversifying our stocks, we're not talking about buying a whole bunch of different companies. What we're talking about is buying companies from across various industries. There are about 9 basic industries that you can invest in. All companies fall into about 9 basic industries, whether it's conglomerates, raw materials, consumer goods, medical, financial, technology, right? And I'm sure I've missed a few. I missed 2 or 3. Okay. And so when you are diversifying your investments, you, and particularly your stock investments, It's about diversifying the number of industries that you're into. And then one of the reasons you want to think about diversifying is because diversifying your investments across industries is a good way to help minimize your risk of loss, right? Like, so if the technology industry is doing well, or three or four industries are doing well, and your one industry is not doing well, at least you may have still have a chance of not losing a bunch of money overall. Your stock, there could be one stock that's down terribly, but the overall portfolio or diversification of investments could be performing well, and not, you don't even feel the loss of this one particular stock that may be down. That's because you diversified across industries. Your investment portfolio can be diverse because maybe you're already in different industries. You have some precious metals, you have some stock, you have some real estate, you have some cryptocurrency, you have a life insurance policy. So you're already in different economies, ecosystems. Okay, so you're already diverse in that sense. When you think about diversifying your stock portfolio, it's diversifying across industries. Now, a mutual fund, very simply put, is a bunch of different stocks, 80, 90, 100 stocks, more or less, a bunch of different stocks wrapped up in one stock, one investment. A whole bunch of stocks wrapped up in one investment or one stock is called a mutual fund. And the reason mutual funds are attractive because they've already inherently included the diversification across not only industries but number of companies as well, which makes mutual funds, really, really attractive as an investment tool. Okay, so a bunch of different stocks wrapped up in one stock is called a mutual fund. Now, you don't have to diversify. You can double down in an industry if you really, really know that industry. Like, you really, really know the healthcare industry, and you know what companies are, you can predict the behaviors or the success or failures of a company, and you want to double down in that one particular industry, then you can have a targeted investment strategy. Just understand, the more targeted you are, the less opportunity you have to minimize your risk of loss because you're locked into one industry. In essence, you put all of your eggs in one basket, and that's sometimes nothing wrong with that. It depends on your risk tolerance level. So a mutual fund is a bunch of different stocks wrapped up in one. And there's that word again, dividend, divvy up them ends, run my money. Where's my money? Some companies, not all, some companies, not all, some companies pay their shareholders, stockholders, shareholders, stockholders, stockholders, shareholders. Some companies, not all, some companies pay their shareholders and or stockholders a piece of the profit, no matter how the well or not well the stock is performing. And that piece of a profit is called the dividend. Dividing up ends, dividing up the ends of the chart. Bottom line, dividing up the profits among shareholders. Some companies do it, not all. A percentage of the stock price is paid out over a given period of time. That payout is called a dividend. And if you get a bunch of stocks that pay dividends, then it is obvious that your investment strategy is the income stock investment strategy, where you only invest in companies that pay dividends because that is an additional form of passive income. Not a bad strategy. Not a bad strategy. Okay, now we're at the bottom half, sorry, six vocabularies. I'm slipping in a couple. So the first one, which includes three: NASDAQ, NYSE, and Amex, right? I want you to look those up. Tell me what they are, in video or audio. What does NASDAQ stand for? What does NYSE stand for? And what does Amex stand for? And not American Express, not the credit card company, right? I'll tell you this, those are exchanges. Those are the places where you can exchange, buy or sell, exchange, buy or sell, buy or sell, or exchange. You can exchange, buy or sell these stocks on one of these three exchanges. Buy or sell on one of these three exchanges. I just want you to tell me what each of the acronyms stand for. The National Association for Securities Dealers Automated Quotations is the NASDAQ, mostly tech stocks. Not all, mostly. NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, all the other stocks hang out on the NYSE if it's not on the NASDAQ. And the Amex is the American Stock Exchange or the American Exchange. A lot of the smaller companies, newer companies, start out here. You don't get to choose which market you're traded on. The SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, determines which market your business will be traded on once you decide to initiate a public offering, once you decide to go public as a company. And the only difference between a public company and a private company is that a public company is able to sell their shares on the open market, like the NASDAQ, the NYSE, or the Amex. I'm a private company. I have shares of stock. I just am not a public company. You want stock, hit me up and we'll negotiate on the stock price and I'll give you value for that over time. And this is your legal document. That's the only difference between public and private company. Now, the Dow Jones, the Dow 30, the Dow, the DJIA, all that's the same. The Dow Jones, the Dow 30, the Dow Jones 30, the DJIA, all of that is the same. That's an index. So is the S&P 500, the Standard & Poor's 500. That's an index. So the Dow or the Dow Jones 30, right? And the S&P 500, those are both indexes, but you can't say indexes because index is improper. The plural of index is indices. So these two indices, the Dow Jones, the Dow 30, the Dow 30, the Dow 30, the Dow Jones 30, the DJIA, and the S&P 500, they measure and keep track of and organize the performance of the top 30, the Dow Jones 30, top 30 largest publicly traded companies, and the S&P 500 measures the top 500 publicly traded companies in America, including the Dow Jones 30, the Dow Jones 30, the DJIA, the Dow Jones, the Dow Jones 30, the Dow 30, the DJIA, all of that is the same. Those are indices. And the performance of these indices, these groupings of stocks as a measurement, helps determine how well the economy or how poorly the economy is doing. Companies that are on the Dow Jones are like, Disney and McDonald's and Home Depot, right? 3M, AT&T. If these companies aren't performing well, these are a lot of consumer brands, then that means that something is happening among consumer spend, and that's a great indicator. And so the Dow Jones measures the top 30, the S&P 500 measures the other 470 plus the Dow 30. So there are about 5,000 companies traded anyway, right? So somebody's got to help police and keep track of all of this data. So those two indexes, you can't say indexes because that's improper. Indices measure the performance of the top 30, the Dow Jones, and the other 470, including the Dow Jones, the S&P 500. And then lastly, market cap. No cap, market cap. Market capitalization. One of the biggest words that you'll hear in this conversation when we talk about the basics of stocks. The market cap. Basically, it's just saying how valuable is this company? What is this company worth? And it's a mathematical equation. Multiply the number of outstanding shares by the current stock price. The number of outstanding shares by the current stock price will give you the market cap. Okay. All right. Number of outstanding shares multiplied by the current stock price. The number of outstanding shares is the number of shares that are still in inventory that are available for trade. You might have to dig a little bit to get that information, but you can get it. Okay. So you want to know the market cap because it helps you understand how valuable a company is as you're doing your research to determine if you're going to invest in them or not. Now, there are other principles, and next time in our next session, we'll get into some of the 9 basic investing principles. But these 9 basic investing principles, this is the work. From this point forward, you take your knowledge and you keep practicing and building the skill and investing. Okay. And then we'll get into some of the philosophies behind investing, like the 9 basic investing principles, according to Scott Stewart, the founder of Genius Lab. It has been a pleasure. I look forward to working with you again in the future. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Let me know. You can find us at geniuslabchicago.com. And until next time, people, you know exactly what it is, right? Until next time.